Welcome back to Soul Plus Systems, the show where we talk about what happens when high performing people stop pretending they're fine and finally start rebuilding the systems underneath their lives. This is not surface level motivation. This is not curated healing language. This is the real architecture underneath survival, performance, pressure, identity, and recovery. And today's guest brings a perspective that I think is going to hit a lot of people harder than they expect. Because from the outside, she looks successful, educated, composed, high functioning, the kind of woman people assume has it all together. But behind that image was something most people never recognize until it's already consumed years of their life. Coercive control. It's not loud chaos. It's not obvious violence, but the kind of invisible pressure that slowly dismantles your nervous system while you continue performing like everything is normal. She's now building a body of work around that experience through her memoir, The Truth She Showed Me, and through conversations focused on nervous system awareness, regulation under pressure, and identity erosion and rebuilding from survival mode. So today, we're going there. Welcome to Soul Plus Systems,
Thank you
Christine.
so much.
And before we dive deep into the heavier parts of your story, I want to start simple. Who are you today in your own words?
Who am I today? I'm a mom of two. I am a director in a Fortune 500. I am someone who's extremely peaceful and living a life of joy and freedom.
Perfect. You talked openly about being highly functional while privately falling apart internally. What do you think most people misunderstand about most of us high functioning people suffering?
I think a lot of people misunderstand the fact that we are not always not being able to see what's beyond the surface level. I feel like it seems like a lot of high functioning people are dealing with pressures that none of us have any clue exist. So we see one image at work and we just assume that's the person that they are all day long, every day. Or, well, we're toting kids around, mom that has it all together, right? I think it's just a misperception, or maybe it's just a lack of grace or what they might actually be going through behind the scenes.
Yeah, you mentioned being in a relationship that systemically dismantled your sense of reality. When did you first have that first realization? Did you have an aha moment that was like something deeper was happening?
I would love to say it happened early. It did not. And it was a 17-year relationship. It the real aha moment was when I saw other people notice behaviors to the point where they there was a comment that my ex had made about how he didn't do laundry for a family of four and he didn't participate in the process. And I just remember someone from his friend group whipping their head around and looking at me like, you let him get away with that? Assuming that I'm wearing the pants in the family and that I'm controlling this relationship. And then that gentleman actually corrected himself and then looked back at my ex and really called him out for the behavior. And that was one of those aha moments. Oh, hey, this isn't normal. This isn't how it's supposed to be. I wasn't wrong. It was a moment of validation.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely identify with that. A lot of people hear the term cohesive control, immediately think about physical abuse. How do you explain that type of control to someone who's never experienced it before?
Oh, it's super sophisticated. Coercive control is one of those things that really sneaks up on people because it starts to condition and train them with certain behaviors, usually based on some reaction from the other party who's initiating that coercive control. So, for example, maybe I was going to go have lunch with friends today and the kids were at home with my ex. He might start a fight while I'm gone, or he might text message me the entire time I'm gone, making it inconvenient and difficult for me to want to be gone. Or there might be a crisis with the kids every single time I'm gone. Those types of little behaviors get you to a point after a certain time where you're like, it's not worth it for me to go out and try to do those things because maybe I feel bad and I need to stay home with my kids. Now I feel guilty. It creates this, it's just a reaction to a behavior that conditions you over a long period of time to do and act a certain way. In that, in the entirety of that, you're slowly losing yourself in the process.
Absolutely. What makes this kind of control so hard to identify while you're actually inside of it?
Oh, it makes it so hard because it's micro behaviors. It's not these big, massive moments where he hits you or sometimes that's involved, but a lot of times that's not where it starts, at least. And there aren't bruises and there aren't outward signs that these things are happening, but those micro cuts that you take all day long, every day, start to wreak havoc on your nervous system, on your body, on your mental state, your emotional state. And before you know it, all of those little paper cuts have you bleeding out all over, and you don't even know how you got there.
You sense something powerful that it leaves no visible marks that anybody can actually see. What did it start doing to your nervous system over time?
Oh, it over time became something that I couldn't ignore anymore. Although I didn't know that these things attributed to it initially, but I started to develop over the years health problems. I started to develop anxiousness and anxiety. I started to develop autoimmune conditions, high blood pressure, insomnia, aches and pains all over my body. And all of those were signs of my body saying something right. And I was not listening. And those things build over time. It started with handshaking and a tight chest, and then over time it evolved into these bigger problems for me.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with the anxiety part of things and having your nervous system feel wrecked. I think that one thing that in your story it exposes really clearly is that survival can sometimes look like discipline from the outside. You described becoming an expert at regulation under pressure because the alternative was dissolution. Can you explain what that actually looked like for day to day for your recovery?
Yeah. So in the day to day right before recovery and starting to work through that was I was a person who was phenomenal in chaos or crisis. I was someone who could come in and solve and fix and get things done. But that's what I had trained myself to be. And so as you work through that recovery process, I had to start working through like, how do I shut some of that down? What is truly my crisis to manage? What do I have control over? Where do I need to step in versus step back? And if I do step in, what is the offset to my nervous system if I do that? And so I had to start just talking myself through those things to determine which ones were worth the effort and which ones weren't really my problem to solve.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing for myself personally that I had to learn as well was that even though I could deal with chaos and all the noise and everything like that and try to be the problem solver and the people pleaser and everything like that, it was just like once I finally even realized what my nervous system was, it made a complete different change for myself. For somebody listening, how does chronic stress reshape someone's identity without them even realizing?
But if while I was living it, I'm not sure I would have known. But as I come out of this, one of the most glaring things that I learned was like I didn't when I left, I couldn't even answer, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Like all of those basic things. What do you do for hobbies? And I think as women and as mothers, sometimes we are conditioned to, from a societal standpoint, like adopt whatever everybody else is doing, whatever their favorites are, because we are people pleasers. We do want to accommodate those things. And I thought it really hard to figure those things out. And I'm still working through that a couple of years later, right? It was a lot easier to say what I didn't like. And so I started there and started working backwards. And I'm not to solve every single favorite dislike in the first couple of years. I'm trying to peak it as it comes. I'm trying new things. It's all about just relearning who you are, what brings you joy, figuring out what joy is first, and then figure out what brings you joy in the process. So it's a ongoing, I think, activity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I found that the quietest moments of my life have been the most times that I've had the most clarity.
Yes.
And just really, like you said, just working backwards, knowing what it is that you don't like or what you don't want in your environment anymore. Having the courage to say no and to take up space.
Yeah.
You said people in high stress environments understand performance and discipline, but not always when survival systems become prisons. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, my identity was tied to the person that I could be for other people, not necessarily for me. So a friend's in crisis, see, I was somebody who could step in and solve. There was a crisis at work, I was called on to solve. And my entire identity got wrapped up in that. And I was a crisis manager. That in my mind, that's who I was. And that's what I was doing 24/7 while I was managing his emotions and his temper and the environment that we lived in to keep it stable. And in that process, you, I just lost every sense of being and compromised myself in every one of those scenarios. And I think I might have gone off on your question here, but will you repeat that last part of your question to make sure I answer it?
Yeah, how does chronic stress reshape someone's identity without them realizing it?
Yeah. So the realization for me came when the health problem started. And when had to start recognizing what, when I started listening to my body, when I took on some of those activities of solving for someone else, what am I giving up in this moment for myself? Am I reading a book today at peace in my house? And this is my recovery time at the end of a week. If I'm giving that up to go solve a crisis for somebody else, I need to knowingly and consciously make that decision because there is an offset. I'm compromising my recovery time to do that. And that takes a lot of discipline and effort to be able to manage on a daily basis. That doesn't just disappear.
Oh, trust me, I get it. I understand what daily discipline is. For me, I start with small wins. At the beginning of my day, I will make my bed. To me, that's a
Yeah.
small win. That's something that I can do every single day to have consistency to start my day well. Do you think that successful women are sometimes less likely to be believed because we appear composed?
I think the women who are concerned about being believed is, I don't think it has so much to do with their status or their success. I think the part that hits those women maybe just a tiny bit harder is the shame and the embarrassment that's associated with being in this situation because everyone views you as the person who has it together, who commands the room when you walk in, who manages things, and they don't see how that person who maintains that level of control would allow someone to step in and then create this environment of complete chaos and abuse.
Yeah, I can relate to the chaos and the noise. For somebody listening who doesn't quite yet understand what nervous system dysregulation actually feels like physically, how might you explain that to them?
It comes, or like I said, in the early days, it's shaking hands. It's being that person who like tunes in immediately. Your ear hears a tone, or your eyes see this look that he has or she has.
Hypervigilance.
Yes, yeah. You notice all these small details that put your body on alert, and you have to be paying attention to start seeing that. But if you start to pay attention, I promise you, you're going to start to see it like just snowball because you're like, oh, there was this, and then it might be the racing heart. It might be chest pain. It shaking hands. It's insomnia. It's really common if you're someone who doesn't speak their voice for you to have pain in your jaw and coming into your neck because you're not letting the words come out. So you're holding them in and your body is storing them somewhere and it's storing them right here where they're not coming out. Start to just in situations where you're like, oh, this feels stressful. Start to consider and catalog what is my body doing right now? How does it feel? Because then you start to compare that to peaceful situations and you're like, oh, this is my day.
Yeah, it really is night and day. And I'm really glad that you made that point because for me, it's like my inner peace is more important than telling someone no or taking up space anymore. I found
Yes.
that as a woman, it's just being a people pleaser my whole life and wanting to be socially accepted under the norms of society and things like that. It's just like you get to the point one day where you realize that your nervous system has been so wrecked due to labels that society will put on you. And if you start to believe those labels for yourself, then without your own inner guidance, then those things can definitely become true. For me, learning about nervous system reset was regaining peace and clarity in my life. And I actually think this is where our work becomes bigger than just memoir because now it turns into a translation.
Yes.
What did rebuilding actually begin to look like for you? Can you walk us through just some of your day to day?
Yeah. So I prioritize self care, and that started with my day start the workout. Yours is making your bed. That is at least the one thing I accomplished today. If I accomplished nothing else, I work out today. For me, that's a checkbox. There's just a quarterly health component for me where I invest in Reiki and massage to make sure that my body stays in this maintenance mode. I'm leveraging two different types of regular therapy. There's the traditional therapy, and then I also have a trauma therapist that I'm working with just to have the outlet I need to be able to process things that are new that I'm experiencing, new triggers, new ways of coping and dealing with things on a day to day. For me, it's making sure that if I feel like I'm activated, and activated for me, that really tense space where maybe breathing is a little hard, chest is tight, my thoughts are racing, things like that. Taking time to just sit and process. Like, why is this happening? What do I need to do to pull myself out of that? I started very
Grounding
early with,
techniques. Yeah.
yeah,
Grounding. Yeah. For me, I have anxiety. I get those panic attacks that you're talking about and stuff like that. And I'm also an empath. So I feel things very deeply.
yeah,
So on a deeply on an emotional level, I can completely relate to what you're saying. And it is so important to be self-regulated so that you can find that inner peace and that wisdom and the clarity to be like a beacon and a lighthouse for others. Was there a moment that you realized the survival mode could no longer be your identity?
I can honestly say it probably wasn't a singular moment, but it was the more peace I felt, the more joy I found, the more I gravitated towards that and having gratitude and grounding myself in that place versus the place where I'm anxious and activated. It all came down to like how I was feeling. And the more you feel the good, the less you want the bad. So you start ruling that stuff out real quick.
Yeah, I agree. Once you find that inner peace and that inner light within yourself, it's like looking back, it's like you said, it's night and day. And it's like you know what you don't want. And now it's like
Yes.
let more of the good in. So
Yes.
what do you hope women feel when they hear your story today?
I hope they feel some sense of validation and the fact that they're not alone and they know that somebody out there believes them, because there's a lot of doubt in that space right now.
Yeah, if someone listening right now quietly recognizes themselves in your story, what would you want to tell them?
I would want them to know that they're not alone. And I want to tell them that there are thousands and thousands of people out there in these communities on social media that create this sisterhood, brotherhood, family because they've experienced something similar. They're there, access them, leverage them. It's a very welcoming community. You're not alone.
All right. Before we close it out, tell everyone where they can find you at, where they can support your work and follow what you're building.
Thank you. I'm on social media. All the big ones at The Truth She Showed Me is the handle for that. And then the book can be found on Amazon, The Truth She Showed Me.
All right. Today's conversation matters because coercive control really announces itself. It hides inside routines, inside pressure, inside performance, and inside relationships that look functional from the outside. And I think what makes this conversation powerful is that it gives language to experiences that many people struggle to explain, even to themselves. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. And if you're rebuilding your life, your nervous system, your identity, or your future, you're exactly who this show is for. This is Soul Plus Systems, where spectators watch and operators rebuild. I'll see you in the next episode.